got a little something to talk about with the NBA. Now, I don't know if you saw it, but the NBA ranked the last worst decisions in the last 5 years by every single NBA franchise. So in the last 5 years, they said this was the worst move that this team did. And then they ranked all of those from 30 all the way down to 1, the worst decision by any franchise in the last 5 years. No surprise, Suns making the top 5 of the worst decisions by any franchise in the last 5 years. And I went over this list, and there's some good ones on there. And I think if you would have been able to branch it out a little bit beyond the last 5, you would have been really able to kind of see some bigger moves that happened that really cost some teams some serious situations. So at number 5, they have the Sacramento Kings having both Tyrese Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox and losing them both within 3 years, and now they don't have a point guard. It's a little bit further back than 5 years, but this is also the same franchise that had the second overall pick, and they did not take Luka Doncic that year. They also did not take Trae Young that year. They took Bagley, who I think is on Detroit right now. I don't even know where he is these days, but they had an opportunity to have a top-tier franchise player, and that one didn't. But they still had 2 guys that are probably all NBA players. Certainly, as De'Aaron Fox kind of flirts with that. And both those guys are now gone. Sabonis is nice, but that ain't great. Just slightly worse than that, they go to the Brooklyn Nets trading for James Harden. Now, that one's kind of tough because we never really got a chance to see what it could have been. That was the year that they still had KD, they had Kyrie, but Kyrie sat out because he didn't want to get the shot with COVID. KD got really hurt, and it was like a team of insane talent, top to bottom. I think they still had LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, a ton of really good vets. Never really got to see what it could have been because those guys never really played together, and it ended up, kind of falling apart. But they did give up 3 first-round picks, Caris LeVert and Jared Allen. Pretty tough for a year and a half of a thing that just did not work at all. There's something about trading for superstars or guys that potentially could be mortgaging your future and all of your good role players. That doesn't seem to be working out for teams. More on that in a minute. Number 3, they have the Bucks trading for Damian Lillard. That one seemed, I actually really liked it at the time, but boy, we just kept waiting for Lillard and Giannis to work together and fit, and it just never worked out. And then, obviously, this just compounds with the problem of Lillard now getting hurt and them having to waive him and swallow that massive contract and stretch it out. And they hit that, $110 million over 5 years. It's going to be going against the cap for him. Pretty brutal. And then you talk about the picks, the players that they passed up, and that it could have potentially been amazing, but those 2 guys just did not work out together. And now that franchise is in a lot of trouble for the next few years because of that stretch. Speaking of which, we get to us. The Phoenix Suns are the number 2 on this list. The biggest mistake that they have is trading for Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal in the summer of 2023. Now, it's hard for me to kind of pull these together because they feel like separate transactions in a lot of ways. But you look at Ishbia officially became the owner on February 7th, and then just 24 hours later, the Suns traded for Durant. That was a pretty big haul. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, unprotected first-round picks, a swap. That was a lot to get KD, but not the end of the world. That's a guy that probably commands that much at that point in his career. It's the Bradley Beal trade that really, really is hard to kind of justify it by any means. I mean, that's the trade that I think everybody looks at, says this is the one that cost this franchise maybe 10 years. They mortgaged every part of their future, doubling down on that point, gave up even more first-round picks, traded Chris Paul, got a guy with a no-trade clause that had a $200 million contract, and we know kind of the rest is history. That did not work out to the point where they had benched Beal and now waived him when he was healthy and stretched it for $19.4 million for the next 5 years against the cap, just fighting to get under the second apron. Here's the thing. They got that at 2. There's a chance before it's all said and done that this will be number 1. Because what they have right now is the number 1 biggest mistake has to be, in their opinion, the most surprising and shocking trade of all time when the Mavericks traded Luka Doncic. Now, there's layers to this because they certainly didn't know at the time, plus you got a tin cap on, they didn't know at the time that they would be getting the first overall pick and just missing out on the playoffs and be able to land Cooper Flag. So you kind of can't include that in this whole kind of plan here. But even without that, had that team stayed healthy, they would have had a real serious chance competing last year with Kyrie, Gafford, Lively, Davis, Klay Thompson. I mean, they had PJ, and they had some guys that can go. But obviously, AD in his first game looks amazing, and then he gets hurt and misses forever. Clay's kind of shelled himself, but Kyrie then gets hurt, done for a year, it looks like, and kind of unravels a little bit. And they start playing, they're running out of guys that you can play on the G League at that point. Like, I mean, they're calling guys up on 2-way contracts, and we're getting close to having to forfeit games because they were dealing with that much injuries. Here's the thing, though. That trade, I believe, was with the mindset of we're going to try and win a title in the next 3 years. That's what, the entire franchise was saying at that point. So year 1 didn't happen. Year 2 doesn't look great. Kyrie, again, is going to be gone for pretty much the entire season. I don't know who else you have that can orchestrate and kind of jumpstart your offense. AD's not that. You need a guard that does that, and they don't really have that guy on the roster. So this year's going to be pretty tough for them to be a serious contender. The next year, as in not this upcoming season after that, assuming Kyrie is healthy, you have a year of getting experience in the league. AD will still be on the kind of the tail end of his prime. Kyrie will still be, I think he'll be a little bit past his prime, but he'll still be very good. We'll like to see what it looks like, back obviously from his injury. But he'll still be, theoretically, if we see a version of what he was and you just kind of deduct a little bit off of, a couple of years further down the line, he'll still be a substantial player. Is Klay off the books at that point? If something happened there, does Klay give you some of his different stunts a little bit? They're going to be a team that is still highly capable of making a run. Now, again, they made that trade with the mindset that we have to win a title in the next 3 years to justify this. Because with the way rosters are reshaped in the NBA now, with everyone signing 2-year contract, your roster will look completely different in 3 years every single time just about now. And with how old Luka was, that meant you were going to have 4 generations of different teams probably with him still in one of the top 5 best players in the league. You gave up on that guy. A transcendent, and it's not an exaggeration, he is an incredible transcendent offensive player. Clearly got his problems defensively and everything else that they noted of why they decided to try and make a move. Don't really love the Coors Light and the hookah that he was kind of partaking in, but they looked at it like they had to do that. So, in this point, right now, I agree, you can't trade a top 5 player, top 3 player in the league when he's kind of just getting into his prime for what they got back. Oh, you can't justify it. But if they win one, I still don't even know if it was worth it. But it certainly makes it a better deal than what the Suns did. And the Suns then would have the worst deal or the worst transaction in the last 5 years. And at that point, I don't think it would be particularly close. Because not only did they dismantle a team that had made the finals, a team that had aspirations, but now this team is in shambles for years to come. You push your chips all in the center of the table, and it's going to cost them 6 to 10 years to probably recover from it. That's a long time and a lot of money that it's going to end up costing them in this franchise, and it's going to be tough sledding from here. But for right now, at this point in time, it's not the worst trade out there. It's not the worst move that any team has made. That still belongs to the Mavericks. And, you know, if you're a Suns fan, you're thanking God for them because it's kind of distracting everybody from kind of what has been just a mess of a franchise the last few years.